you basically knowing my ideology, and basically you knowing me knowing yours, you can support some of our programs. Is that what you're saying?
Why not?
And you believe in programs like the Breakfast with Children program and free health clinics? Right on, brothers?
We believe they're good things.
Uh-huh.
As a focal point to organize their mothers and fathers.
Uh-huh.
Peace.
Mm-hmm. There's no educational program here?
That's come out of the social action thing. You know, you set that up, brother. I mean, we can't put everything on one piece of paper.
What about this bank?
Credit union?
Mm-hmm.
Credit union. Credit union, my brother.
Is a bank.
Are you hip to credit unions? It is a bank.
Yeah, you go and borrow money?
Yeah, it's a bank. It's a bank. Owned by the people. Run for the people. And by the people.
What will money be given out to people for?
Well, the people would decide that.
You want to buy,
You know, whatever, you know, the people in the community decide.
You need some living room furniture, maybe? You need a car, maybe?
See, the thing is with me, you dig, I need to know some more about it. I wish you had some more literature about the educational thing here. Because, you dig, as far as we're concerned in the struggle, the way we look at struggle is that this depends on the educational thing, you dig. Because
this depends on the education.
Well, the whole thing.
No, but in the end, this does. You can form this with no education. You can form this and this.
No, not the way we're talking about forming it. You know, right. We're talking about forming it right. You know, it's not on the paper. We didn't write it on the paper.
You can form it right with no education.
No.
Let me give you an example. Jomo Kenyatta formed the excellent revolution with no education. And on the end thing, Jomo told the motherfucker, said, well, you know, you can educate, hate the enemy, but I'm your brother. I'll help you lead the revolution. Now I'm going to oppress you. Another example, Papa Doc in Haiti. Papa Doc in Haiti hated everything white. Man, you couldn't put this white paper in front of Papa Doc's face, but he moved all the white people out and he took over and be oppressed. He did, because of no education. And the people that had been educated, they just said that we don't hate the motherfucking white people, we hate the oppressor, whether he be white, black, brown, or yellow. So we got to know the educational program to find out what is going to be in the finale. A lot of people, Jomo Kenyatta is called not a never a revolutionary, but an ex-revolutionary. So is Papa Doc. They brought on a successful revolution. That thing in the Mao's was a bitch. Bantu freedom fighters, all that kind of action. But what we're saying is that it's the end. That you don't judge Castro now. You can't do it. Nobody in this room could judge whether Castro's going to be a revolutionary or not. You know what I mean? We're talking about things, you know what I mean, with China, the People's Republic, and even at the stage they're in now, talking about even going on further into a communistic state. That's what we're talking about. Those are revolutionary. So we got to understand here the educational program that you have to be able to figure out whether it will go on the right lines where the people will end up in a situation where they can be able to really control themselves. You understand what I'm saying? With no education, the people take this local foundation and start stealing money because they won't be really educated to why it's the people's thing anyway. You understand what I'm saying? With no education, you have neo-colonialism instead of colonialism, like you got in Africa 9, like you got in Haiti. So what we're talking about is there has to be an educational program. That's very important. As a matter of fact, it's so important for us that a person has to go through 6 weeks of our political education before he can consider himself a member of the party, able to even run down ideology for the party. Why? Because if they don't have an education, then they're nowhere. You dig what I'm saying? They're nowhere because they don't even know why they're doing what they're doing. You might get people caught up in the emotionalist movement. You understand me? You might get them caught up in because they're poor and they want something. And then if they're not educated, they want more. And before you know it, they'll be capitalists. And before you know it, we'll have Negro imperialists.
Of 300 years of slavery and Jim Crow segregation in our society. As a direct result of it, that those processes intentionally and specifically and directly maldistributed almost 100% of all this nation's wealth, power, resource, privileges, businesses, and controls of all levels of government into the hands of the dominant white society. You do not have a sufficient amount of anything to be a competitive people. You don't own and control enough of anything to be able to survive. And nobody has addressed that issue. We came out of the civil rights movement instead of addressing the issue and doing these major examinations and research studies in the United States. Says, let's go back in the test and find out what has happened to black folk. What happened to black folk in all those years as a direct result of slavery and Jim Crow segregation? How badly were they hurt, crippled, and injured? Economically, educationally, politically, ego-wise. Nobody did it. What they did was say, well, let's pretend that nothing happened to black folk. It didn't hurt them. And all they need now is just equal opportunity. All they need is a chance. all they need is a hand up rather than a hand out. That's all BS. You don't own and control enough to be a competitive group. Because when slavery maldistributed all the resources in the hands of one group, that group has now frozen all those resources inside their culture, their community, their schools, their neighborhoods, their institutions, and everything else. 87% of all this nation's wealth now is locked and boxed. Locked and boxed. You cannot get it. It is passed on from one generation to the next at birth. That means that the typical white child at birth gets 87% of what he needs to survive and compete in the society. He gets 87% of what he needs. All he needs to get two other things to be successful in our society. All he needs to get a scheme in his head and persevere. And he will run into what he needs over and over and over and over again because it's in his community, in his school, in his church, in his institutions, in his family, in his culture, in his race. He can walk down the street and hit it over and over and over and over again. So you have people like Ted Turner going bankrupt, becoming a millionaire, going bankrupt, becoming a millionaire. Donald Trump going bankrupt, becoming a millionaire. You can't make it like that as a black person. If a black person becomes rich and go bankrupt, he'll never do it twice.
You see, it's like if I took an animal and put it in a cage, and so the animal couldn't grow well. And then I'll say, oh, look at this deformed animal. Do you see? I don't say, I made this creature deformed because of the conditions that I subjected him or her to.
Senator Obama?
My kids have gone to the University of Chicago lab school, a private school, because I taught there, and it was 5 minutes from our house, so it was the best option for our kids. But the fact is that there's some terrific public schools in Chicago that they could be going to. The problem is that we don't have good schools, public schools for all kids. A U.S. Senator can get his kid into a terrific public school. That's not the question. The question is whether or not ordinary parents who can't work the system are able to get their kids into a decent school, and that's what I need to fight for and will fight for as President of the United States.
So if you want to maintain an oppressive process on a group of people, you certainly don't inform them of the depths and details of their history. Just like you don't give them adequate education, you don't maintain adequate housing, etc.
That our schools teach our children the truth, okay? And we could do that because we pay for the schools. Public education is not free in that way. We pay for it every day, every time we pay taxes, every time we purchase things, every time we buy insurance, whatever it is. We're supporting all these things. And we have more say-so there, but it's difficult to get us to come out to the schools. And the frustration of having children who are out of control is so high that the mothers are glad to send a child off to school and try to give that responsibility to somebody else instead of us taking that responsibility on ourselves.
This gives us the impetus to be able to claim who we are as a people. And for us now to go into our schools and teach our children, because if we don't teach them this, look, if I were them, I wouldn't teach this. I'm telling you straight up right now. I would not teach African children to have power over themselves. If they have power over themselves, they don't have to ask you for a job. They don't have to depend on you for a job. They'll make their job.
I was at a meeting last night with a group of parents who have children who are not being successful in high school. And at that meeting, there was a school member who said that she felt in the meeting we were spending too much time discussing the problems and that we hadn't begun to generate the solutions. And I told her that I disagreed with her. And I explained to her why. I said one of the biggest problems we have as African people is that we are too quick to rush out and fix something you know nothing about. If the engine in my car is broke, and I'm not a mechanic, okay? And if I rush out to the car store and buy all types of fancy gadgets to get my engine running again, and I go up under that engine, okay, I can end up wasting those resources, wasting time, wasting my money, and if I'm not careful, I could probably get killed under that hood not knowing what I'm doing. I got to be patient. I got to get that manual. I got to read through it. I got to study that system so once I get under that hood, I know exactly what to do, when, and where. Problem with black folk is nobody is patient enough to investigate the problem fully, to make sure we understand it, so when we go out to fix it, we don't lose any lives unnecessarily, any resources unnecessarily, any time or money unnecessarily.
We don't have a think tank. What is something I call a dark matter think tank. These Europeans got think tanks all over the place, and that's how they always are 20 steps ahead of us, because nobody is thinking and strategizing. We're just reacting, and that's why they're keeping us the way we are. We're reactors. You see, we are not supposed to be reactors. We are supposed to be actors, not reactors. We act upon things based upon a consensus thought. When we come together and we know the strategy, it's because all of the greater thinkers came together and threshed out this plan, and we knew all of where it's going to fail, where it's not going to fail, how it's going to work, where it will work, where it will not work, and we move from that. We don't have that.
Food, clothing, and shelter. Until you get food, clothing, and shelter, you will never get the attention of the masses. What made Marcus Garvey so successful? What made the Honorable Elijah Muhammad so successful? What made the Black Panther Party so successful? Now you're looking at 3 different ideologies. Mr. Garvey's Pan-Africanism, Elijah Muhammad's Black religious nationalism, the Black socialism of the Black Panther Party. Ideologically, they were different, but all 3 of them did one thing: provided for food, clothing, shelter, jobs, education, medical care. Every last one of those institutions attempted to build some sort of an independent functioning community with services. We ain't doing that today. We ain't doing that today. And that's why we don't have their attention. They say, why does the church continue to control black people when all they do is sell Jesus and collect money? Why? Because the church does have some services. It ain't sufficient, but they got more than the conscious organizations. The problem with the conscious organizations is all we do is run our damn mouth.
Everybody in America have communities except us. We do not have one single solitary black community in America. All we got are black neighborhoods. A black neighborhood is like a bucket with a hole in it. It won't hold anything. You can pour water in all you want to. A community, to be a community, you must have 3 elements in it to have a community. You must have a wholly independent economic structure with people in there who are producing goods, services, and jobs and business opportunities for their own people. 2, you must have a code of conduct that teaches you how to support and buy from those people who you live with and look like you. And 3, you must have some governance or some organization that will speak for you in politics.
We can rewrite the game. We can make it so that they can't test us because they're not intelligent enough to ask the kind of questions that we would answer. This is how deep we are. And they know this. And like I say, this has been my theme. If I were them, I would do the same thing. How can I let you out? What's going to happen to me when you find out who you are? I will be destroyed.